accepting defeat and giving the victory to others. And it's a practice that I have undertaken ever since I entered the Dharma. Nothing else worked good enough. I wouldn't have a problem with God, but I could sure have a problem with you. What I needed was something that could take me a little bit further than where the mind actually was prepared to go. And when I came across this notion of accepting defeat and giving the victory to others, trying it doesn't mean that you are always in that place. Accepting is more in the sense of allowing something so that you can develop and strengthen, and it creates a platform later for you to be able to use that very strength in a more powerful and meaningful way. You really don't find things becoming so personal. It maybe that is the way that it is, but it's not personally directed towards me because they don't even know me. This is just a perception in somebody's mind. Understand it that way. It takes a bit of the sting out, and you can say, well, then how can I use my wisdom or my compassion to make it better, to help bring some understanding? And so a lot of times it means that the very one who is being treated in a certain way has to respond not in like manner, but in the opposite way, to be a face or an image or an example for one to even know how to act or to know how to treat someone. So if I go into a place and they may be feeling threatened by my presence, rather than me being standoffish because I'll go right up to them and I'll start a conversation. And just in that way, so that they can realize there's no danger. I'm not going to bite you, don't worry. Go right on with it. And in that way, it was like, I gave them some relief. There was an opening because they wanted it, but they didn't know how to take it. But I know how. And then just go and go right there with it. So it's in these ways we can use some of the great oppressions that we've had to offer a way of escape for people who are trapped in certain views that they don't even want to hold and don't even know how to get out of. Now, this is not the whole story because some people need to just be told no. But I'm just saying we can't throw everybody in the same basket. Some of my best friends are conservative. I don't understand why they think like they think. But what I know about them as people is that they're really good people. So I guess they tell somebody, some of my best friends are liberal or progressive. I don't understand them, but like this on both sides. And that's why we really do have to do our own work and then rely on that completed work, because that's what will take us forward. The completed work of the Dharma actually gives us capacity to be effective in the world. I mean, I like the whole ethnic thing. I love the Oriental stuff. That's just the way I'm wired. I just love all of that. But when I started learning the Dharma, I kept hearing about cultural baggage. And then I'm like, okay, that's great. I'll jump on the cultural baggage bandwagon because I don't feel like learning Pali, and I don't feel like learning. Why should I speak, Tibetan? I'm not Tibetan. I mean, so all of these, it just made perfectly good sense to me, and I just started stripping things away. But at some point, I began to realize here we are with it in our culture for whatever, 50, 75, 100 years, maybe. And already, if we are really mindful, we can see patterns in things, and we cannot make the same mistakes over and over. So I was looking at how we were like crafting this Western Buddhism, which is going to be the best Buddhism of all. And I remembered when acupuncture came to this country, and I was training under a classical doctor who was part of the Black Hat sect, and the doctors who work with all the emperors, right, from China. And now he was telling me, well, since it's come to America and we've started licensing and everything, they have decided where the points are. So you can expect the efficacy to go down 50% because now they're telling us, carriers of the lineage, where the points are. And when I started thinking about our Dharma, I started thinking in the same way. So we don't know what their practice is. And now we're deciding what is what. And we're calling all of that cultural baggage. But suppose I didn't. Suppose I just went to CBAC and I started going to these places. And I'm going to tell you, I found something, and it was caught. It wasn't taught. Didn't understand a bit of that Chinese. But in there, something, I was infused with something that changed me in a certain way. The words alone could not change me. It's in these ways that I also encourage that we need to go. This sister who wrote, I think our Oriental sister, who wrote something about culture back into this great big uproar, instead of saying she was right. We didn't want to acknowledge that we're discriminating in that kind of way. But we have to acknowledge our faults. I was trained as a monk, you never admit your weaknesses to the households because it makes them think less of the monkdom. But I'm always confessing something that I need to work on, to show people how to do it. You can look at some habit or some habitual way of thinking and say, Barbara, you need to work on yourself. Tom, you need to work on yourself, and then do it. We need to let people know that the things you're struggling with, some of them we're struggling with, maybe not on the same level, but until we're fully enlightened, we're still grappling with some things, and let them know that this is a work in progress, but don't start working and start pretending it's fixed, because it's not fixed. And so that's all I want to say, that this notion of cultural baggage, I think we should take that out of our vocabulary, and that we should respect where things come from. We should have a respect for them, even what we don't understand. They kept it around for over 2,000 years. Let us not destroy it in 200. Let it be. Just let it be, and just have an appreciation for it, even if it's not my style, even if it's not my thing. In these ways, we need to learn tolerance right within Buddhism, instead of going out there and trying to correct everybody. We need to work on these things. And it's just part of the process. Yeah, we're working on it. And we don't feel so bad. We don't feel so bad. We don't feel so guilty. We don't feel so shamed. We're working on all of this.
I appreciate that it's a work in progress, that we need to look at ourselves, examine our own uncaring attitudes, try to understand our own privilege, because we're all privileged in certain ways. This is what I think we have to look at directly, by virtue of speaking English, by virtue of having a passport, by virtue of having time to meditate, by virtue of having time to study. We are all privileged in certain ways, whether by gender or race or the pigment of our skins and so on. And examining without feeling hopeless. A feeling of hopelessness can also be a source of a place for anger to ferment, and sometimes unacknowledged. But also to examine our own arrogance, because I think a lot of racism comes from arrogance, a feeling of being better than others. And that's a tough one, because that's getting to the very heart of self-cherishing. You mentioned the practice of taking the loss and giving the victory to others, and that's one of the special Tibetan practices that is really useful for unlearning self-cherishing. The practice of exchanging self for others, Tonglen practice. These techniques of learning to get over our attachment to self, I think, is especially important for unlearning racism, undoing a lot of our assumptions. It also strikes at the heart of and addresses the kinds of hostility that we might feel toward others, because we're often not in touch with our assumptions about our own arrogance and assumptions about our own superiority. And because of our privilege, sometimes we're just completely blinded by it. Traditionally, we talk about self-cherishing and self-grasping as the two things that are responsible for all our problems. Cherishing is this illusion that we're somehow more important than others. So all of these practices on exchanging self for others and so forth help to adjust all the loving kindness meditation, compassion meditation, but also this getting over the idea of the self as a solid sort of entity, learning to break it down. So this is the grasping at self as being truly existent. And here the deconstructionist methodology of the Buddhist practice from the very beginning. And this is why I think the tradition is important, that we do need to have respect for 2,500 years now, that it might be even older, they're thinking. All of these practices and ideas that have a long history and have worked so well for awakening so many millions of people, well, to imagine that we can trash all that and we're so much better because of our university educations that we can ignore all of that is another kind of intellectual arrogance. So getting back to the beginning with this idea of understanding the self as a construct of five aggregates, and where does race and gender fit in there? It would have to do with the body, right? And then maybe the other attitudes that develop on the basis of a misunderstanding about the way the self exists.